We're back on a race week. Baku is on the horizon. We're going to obviously have a big track run through with Tim Hauraney on our racing sim a little bit later in the show. But first, Tim, let's go right to the rumors, man. And I know
let's get right into it.
I know you hate this, but I think it's interesting because there is a rumor about a rumor going around, and this is so Formula One. A paddock rumor that Ferrari are significantly behind their rivals in 2026 development has reportedly been, quote, strategically circulated. And obviously, we've been hearing Mercedes good, Ferrari bad.
Yeah.
And according to Racing News 365, this rumor was created to make Ferrari a less attractive destination for engineers. And we've even seen a couple of Ferrari engineers defect to Audi. And so, Tim, I don't know how much you may or may not know about a strategically placed rumor, because if it's strategically placed, that means that not a lot of people know where it came from. But how often does something like this happen in Formula One? It's famous for its gamesmanship behind the scenes, but I am curious about how you react to something like this.
I think, Adam, all of these, engineers, teams, team principals, executives, bosses, they all talk to each other. It is a very close-knit community on the inside there. And so everyone is always chatting with each other to float to float something like that into the mix. I'm not surprised. I haven't heard that yet, and this is the first I'm hearing of it. I find that really interesting. I mean, Ferrari has lost a few individuals who have worked on the 2025, 2026 cars. And, you had mentioned it there, losing some to other teams. And then you've had big designers like Enrico Cardile, leave for Aston Martin. That was a big one. And so, when you look at the exodus, but then also who's Fred Vasseur bringing in at the same time, and where does all of that sort of land? I mean, it's not like it's a sinking ship. I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that Ferrari could be struggling with the 2026 power unit. That is something that a lot of folks have been talking about in the paddock. Whether or not it's true or not, it remains to be seen, because we're not going to figure out who's going to have an advantage, who isn't going to have an advantage until we get to testing in Bahrain next year. So 6 months from now. I think, Adam, like all competitors, you always want to try and find a way of, getting an advantage.
Yes.
So if Mercedes or someone from Mercedes or someone from another team is floating a rumor like this around, maybe they think Ferrari actually does have something. So there's that as well.
Well, and this is the thing. There are some rumors about the fact that there could be one team or one power unit that's as much as 20% better than the rest of them. And, we ran into this the last time the regulations changed in 2022, and we saw Ferrari and Red Bull pull away, and then Red Bull really pull away in 2023 to the detriment of the sport. I mean, it had been on a great run. A lot of people sat indoors and ended up watching Drive to Survive during the pandemic. Formula One kept going during the pandemic. And so I think one of the things that as a, longtime fan, you kind of worry about is this sport going to get boring again? Is this going to be one of those where we have a Max Verstappen winning Red Bull winning 22 of 23, because that's Sergio Perez erasure, and we don't want to do that. Is this one of those where, it's Lewis Hamilton mid 2010s? Are we looking at that next year? Because what has been so great this year is how competitive most teams, except for Alpine, have been.
I think, Adam, we've gotten convergence this season, and if we were to stick with this regulation for another season, we'd get even more convergence. So you would get the likes of Alpine making greater gains. Ferrari would probably have a more consistent car. Red Bull would have sorted out their issues and have brought a more competitive car. McLaren maybe would have made a few little updates and pushed the boundaries a tiny bit, but you would still have more convergence. The teams would be even closer. The racing would be that much better. But when you decide to do a regulation change, all of these things just fall by the wayside, and you always get one team that has an advantage to start the season. Sometimes that advantage is quite big, like we saw in 2014, 2015, 2016. It wasn't until 2017 when Ferrari actually started to make gains on Mercedes, 2018 as well. Mm-hmm. And so we are probably going to get something like that. I would put money on it saying that we probably will get some dominance to start 2026. And I think that's where...
Will it be power unit dominance or one team?
It could be a bit of both. It could be maybe one team nails the power unit and not the chassis regulation. Maybe one team nails the chassis regulation and not the power unit regulation. But since the power unit is just so dominant, for this new regulation, it's whoever is going to have a good engine is probably the one who's going to start with the advantage. However, the FIA is trying to find ways of balancing this out. And I would say, Adam, that's more than they had done in the past. When you go back to 2014, there literally was nothing in place to help a power unit manufacturer make gains. I mean, that is something the FIA is working on with the teams to figure out, okay, in a fair way, how do we figure out the rules to allow the power unit manufacturer to make the gains to catch up if they are behind by a certain amount.
Right.
I think that's a positive thing, because you don't want... I don't think you want the sport to be just so mechanically driven anymore. You do want, the drivers obviously play a huge role in the cars. And you want that athlete to shine, right? Like you want their stories out there as well. And I think, Adam, when you look at the synthetic fuels that they're trying to bring online, it's something that's looking like it's actually quite costly.
Yep.
But if they can get that under control and mass produced along the lines within Formula One from different fuel providers, that's a positive thing to take the sport maybe in another direction in a few years' time. And I think, not to be down on this regulation that we're coming into, but honestly, I haven't heard many positive things about it yet. Now, that could change, right? We could get some good racing next year. It does sound like, the driver is going to play a pretty big factor in determining what to do with the car, how to manage it, how to manage the power within a lap, within a race, because that's going to be very significant. And that's actually fascinating to me. I find that very interesting. When I play F1 25, right? Like, we see that there is amount of energy you can use within a lap, within a race. How do you navigate the battery situation? I think that's going to be even more when we get into 2026, which means the driver has to do a lot more thinking about when are they attacking, when are they deploying, when are they harvesting, how are they doing it. So that, to me, I think is also going to play a factor, which will create more storylines, which is good. But again, I'm a little concerned by what I've been hearing. However, I mean, that could all change once we get to testing next season. So at this, it's one of those things with F1, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess the blatantly obvious question, which has a blatantly obvious answer, but still, is, do we have to do this? Like, do they have to do this? Why only put a regulation change so quick?
5 years goes by
in a heartbeat.
I know, it's something they've always done, though, right, Adam? Like, it's not. And I think for this one, they, as a sport and also governing body, you have to factor in F1 in this as well, wanted more, OEM participation. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of that decision by the OEMs to get involved in F1 if there was going to be a hybrid component. Now, believe it was Audi who had suggested having like, I think it was like front axle regeneration as well, if I'm not mistaken. We're going back a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So that got them actually really, really interested. And then it kind of was not something that the other teams would agree upon, because I think Audi did actually have an advantage in that scenario because it is something that they've been working on in their other sports car programs that they run in. And so it's something they had knowledge of. But then once the OEMs got together, teams got together, it kind of turned into this sort of 50% energy from the battery, 50% energy from the internal combustion engine, and not a lot of thought went into what are we doing with the car.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of like when you're in F1 or open wheel racing, IndyCar, whatever, when you're building a race car, you always start with the chassis. You never start with the engine.
Yeah. I'm loving the season so much, Tim. And it reminds me of when, I'm a McLaren fan, but I loved Max and Lewis going at it.
Right? Oh, it was great.
That season was magic until the last race when they really blew it, I think. I will always believe that should have been Lewis's championship. I think they called the wrong rule. But it doesn't mean that Max isn't a phenomenal driver and hasn't won a billion races since, all right? It's not like I hate Max because of that. I think Formula One deserves the blame there. Tim, I just get worried that next year we're talking about X team that wins every race. And I include McLaren in that, who've won the majority of the races this year. But they haven't won them to the level where you're like, oh my God, everybody's completely out of the driver's race, right? Obviously the team championship, everybody kind of knows who's going to take that. But the drivers one, which is what everybody pays attention to outside of the teams and that sort of thing, that's still very much a possibility for teams outside of McLaren, as much as it's looking more and more out of reach. And I don't know, man. I don't want to I don't want to be here in June going, we already know who won. You know?
Absolutely.
That's the thing. And you can only talk about, and as much as people like to say it, and it's true, hey, remember, there are a bunch of races for second, third, and fourth, and the midfield and the backfield that are important too. And real fans do really pay attention to that. The average fan doesn't. They're like, who won? And that's all people have time for, right? Like not everybody's got time for this. So I have my concerns. I voiced them. I won't sit on that topic for too long. Now, Tim, something before we get into our Baku walkthrough here. You wanted to talk a little bit about McLaren and how they're going to handle sort of strategy this week. And I think this dovetails perfectly into talking about the track. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, Adam, if we go back to the last time out and we saw what happened between the two drivers and Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, obviously Oscar being asked to move aside and give second place to Lando. Mm-hmm. There's been a little bit more light shed on sort of what happened. Why did this go down the way it did? There was a pretty heavy debrief session that's happened within McLaren with the drivers following Monza. And a big part of it has to do with, Charles Leclerc in that race. And when he pitted in the fresh tires that he was on, the team itself was worried about Leclerc because he had been gaining on both drivers. And so the idea was to pit one of the McLarens so they could have some fresh rubber to make sure they defended against Leclerc if he actually got it even closer. One of the things is that Lando was asked was if he was going to pit first or if Oscar was going to pit first. And it sounded like it was Lando's decision to say, look, you can pit Oscar first if you want, but I don't want to be undercut. So if I get undercut, we have to talk about giving me the position back because this was part of your decision to want to pit one of us now.
Right. But you can't make a decision like that and take my lead away.
Exactly. Essentially. Right. And so Piastri pitting and ending up undercutting because Lando had the slow stop with the front left wheel gun. And so the decision had to be made that, like, hey, it happened. You got to let Norris go by.
Right.
And that's essentially how it kind of all broke down. Piastri was asked on Thursday today if he had spoke to Mark Webber after. It was an interesting question. If he'd spoken to Mark Webber after the race. And it sounded as though he didn't go into details to what they discussed. However, it sounded like they were both on the same page with what had happened within the race and what's going to be done moving forward, which is, McLaren's racing rules, papaya rules, are not going to change.
Right.
Like, that's something that will not change moving forward. McLaren, Adam, can win the Constructors' Championship this weekend.
Okay.
With about 7 races left to go, if my math is correct.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Adam, when that happens, I'll be very curious to see how the two of these drivers handle each other moving forward from there. Because, look, if I'm one of those drivers, this is my thoughts. If I'm one of them, I am waiting till we win the Constructors. Mm-hmm. And then those papaya rules are going straight out the window.
Well, yeah, because there's nothing now at stake for the team.
Exactly. That's just me. Now, these two drivers have probably a calm, cooler head than I do.
We'll see, Tim.
Yeah, exactly. We definitely will see. That's why I find this just, this weekend's going to be really interesting from that perspective. As what happens between, these two drivers. They were absolutely grilled about this today. Both of them were grilled at
Of course, as they should be.
So I mean, it will be interesting to see how much of that gets to them with the same question over and over, asked a different way in different scenarios. So I'm interested to see how both of them handle this weekend. I'll be curious to see how competitive McLaren is this weekend as well. But yeah, it's I think this is shaping up to be a good one because not only did we see that there are other teams who can compete against McLaren following Zandvoort, which I think a lot of us were worried that McLaren had taken such a big step that no one could. But then there's Max Verstappen riding on his horse, right? And now we'll see this weekend where I think actually Max could also play a factor as well, Adam, this weekend. So it should be a good one.
Yeah. No, it's man, I really love this course, and it's actually perfect because we're going to go right into your rundown of Baku from a driver's perspective. It's just such a fun course to look at, and I don't think it gets the love that it should. 47 overtakes last year alone, which makes for an exciting race. So let's get into that. All right, we're back. Baku. Did it work? Was it funny? It was pretty bad, wasn't it? I'm sorry. It's the second longest circuit this year, Baku, second only to Spa-Francorchamps, which is amazing. It's 6 kilometers long, 51 laps. This is an interesting course, and here's the deal: it's so funny for a city course to be the place, Tim, where there's a ton of overtakes. But last year, there were 47 overtakes when Oscar didn't do them all. Oscar won last year. 47 overtakes on this track, Tim. And I think that's a good place to start because there is a lot of high speed, but there's a lot of tight corners that are wider than you would expect. And I know saying tight and wide there's a lot of ways you can say tight and wide, but it's certainly not when you're speaking about my body. But I would say that I'm Tim, it's an interesting course because a lot of these street courses like Jeddah, like Singapore, which is the next race, are very, very tight and very difficult to get around. This one, it opens itself up to slower corners, which leads to, I think, a lot of your overtakes.
Yeah, a lot of 90 Well, no, I just blew it.
Perhaps asking you that question right at that first corner or second corner is perhaps not the best move.
Yeah, a lot of 90-degree corners, Adam. So tight Maybe not as twisty. There are some twisty sections, obviously. I mean, when we get to castle section,
Which is my when I'm playing F1, I can't stand the castle section. I always bin it in the castle section.
well, it's just because like it's easy to rush the corner, right? Like it's.
Right.
I find that when we get there, we can break it down a little bit. But the castle section, yes, being very, very difficult. We've only done 5 laps on this track so far, so bear with us.
Okay. All right. And so, Tim, looking at the way
I'm driving.
No, we're not looking at that. I mean, let's go through each corner. What when we pass a corner that you think is good for passing, I'd love to talk to you about it. Like, stop it, point it out, because we don't have to go for speed on this one. This is the castle section right here, and it is what a pain in the butt. But you've made it through pretty good. My issue with the castle section is always where I exit. Right, I can always hit it, but I hit it on the wrong angle, which puts me out on a bad exit. And there's an immediate corner right there. And if you don't exit that properly, then you can't gain any speed on where you are right now, which is sort of the wider, longer, faster section in the track.
And like, I think also with it, we can go back and break it down a little bit more.
Yep.
But I think with some of these turns, it's the braking that's actually super important because they're really big, heavy braking events. Like when we're coming down this straightaway, I mean, obviously it's one of the longest straightaways on the calendar. It's a huge braking event, right? Like we're going from like 340 kilometers an hour down to, I mean, whatever our entry speed is going to be here.
And you got to slam it, right?
140, probably a little too fast. 130 kilometers an hour, and you really have to hammer the brake pedal. So the braking is kind of what sets you up for a lot of these turns. It can also really kill the lap.
Okay.
You really have to watch where the runoff is for everything. Like for here, for instance, like we're going to brake pretty hard, but it's kind of like at this point where you're like, you have to commit. You're either going to commit to the corner or you're going to go down the runoff.
Right.
Because you've carried so much speed, but you're also on that limit of the brakes where it's like, I'm going to brake really hard, really late here. And it's like, I have to commit to the corner.
Yeah.
Do I feel like I can do that? And once you've turned the wheel and committed, that runoff is now inaccessible.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because it is a city course. Like you look at the visuals you have here. You've got the runoff there, and everything in your natural being is telling you take the runoff. Because if you're actually physically in a car like this, it looks like you're going to smash your nose right off the Ferrari sign there. And it's a really blind corner. And I know that it's straight at the end, but the mental hurdle, and these guys are Formula One drivers, I know that they're different than us, but the mental hurdle you have to commit to a corner like that, it is so tight. I'm curious about driver mentality. What are you looking at on the racetrack in order to go, okay, now I'm going to corner, now I'm going to brake? What are you kind of pinning that on? Because it's got to be faith, right?
So like we've only done a few laps, but so far the reference I've been starting to use, and it could be
because there's a 50 there.
Yeah, it could
and
be
there's
the
100
wrong,
there.
It could be the wrong one. So you're essentially coming down. So I know once I get past this black light box that I'm going to need to start to do my braking. It's once I get to this tree limb that I actually started the braking. I think you can brake a little bit later. I've been kind of playing it a bit safe over these few laps, but it's the braking, the initial braking, it's the commitment of it, and then it's understanding, like, have I trimmed enough speed to start bleeding off the brake pedal and committing to the corner.
Right.
Because once you get to like here, this is kind of like the point of no return.
That's what I'm saying, right? It's such a tight exit on this.
Yeah, and that's the other part of it. Since you're coming to the apex, you're apexing, and we're obviously doing this very slowly.
Yep.
You have to get the car towards the wall. Like now we have to like drive the car out towards the wall because we have to use all the road that's available to us. So carrying the speed, have I carried too much? So if I've carried too much, I'm going to hit this wall.
You're in the AWS wall, yeah. And so my question is, so obviously the video game has the reference point on the left side there. Is your recommendation as a driver, if you're committing to this, to maybe not pay? Because there's a lot of times in this video game where the reference point is actually not the right racing line. So you would say commit and use the side.
Use what's available, because if you're basically, we can go back a bit. If you're basically going to carry a lot of speed in, which is what you want to do, right? Because you're basically carrying speed through all the corners, you're going to know that, okay, I don't want to get close to the wall, right? If you don't want to get close to the wall, then you can't carry too much speed in because you'll want to keep the car like here.
Yeah.
Right? And then come over where it's...
That always screws me up because that makes it so much slower.
You should be allowing the car to kind of do its thing. You don't want to... You don't want to bind the car up too much. You kind of want to let it flow, let it kind of do its thing, trust that it's going to be okay, and trust in your skills that you've carried the right amount of speed to just skim the wall or to kind of get close to it, and then start bringing the car over in a straight line, so keeping the wheel nice and straight, heading for my next braking reference. With this corner, I find it interesting because...
And this is, by the way, for anybody paying attention, this is the corner before Castle,
yes,
right?
This is one of them. This is one of the corners before Castle section. You want to... This curbing is very sort of inviting. Like, part of it makes you think, hey, can I kind of go over this?
Yeah.
Can I take the car over that and survive?
Because it's going to pop your wheels. That's a thick curve.
It's going to bring you up in the air. And so when you're getting the platform of these cars up off of the ground, you're losing a lot of downforce and you're losing a lot of grip and a lot of traction. And so by taking too much of this curb, you're going to cost yourself. It could spit you right into the wall, or it could, when the car lands, give you some oversteer. But it's inviting you to carry speed. Does that make sense? Like,
absolutely.
It wants you to really commit to it and be aggressive, but a part of it, you just can't. So you have to sacrifice it in a way and just do your best with trying to get as much speed out of the entry to it as possible. This next section is really interesting because, like, again, we've only done a few laps, but I think you can actually brake and downshift as you're kind of coming in.
Forgot about
here.
the chicane here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky because it really throws your rhythm off, right? Because you've gotten used to 90-degree corner, 90-degree corner, 90-degree corner, and then all of a sudden it's this really odd chicane, and it kind of just throws your rhythm off a bit. And so it's trying to, like, make sure that you can keep the rhythm going through it. So is it sort of braking, downshifting as you're kind of going through it? I think that's what it is. Again, like, I haven't done enough laps to really experiment with it and get away with it. However, once you get out of there, you have another one of these long straightaways, and just, it's always important to make sure that you're utilizing all the long straightaways. That's where you're gonna gain all your speed with this track, and getting close to the walls is the other.
So here's another one. This corner feels a lot like the one we just spent a lot of time on, right?
It is. It's kind of like one of those 90-degree corners.
Do you mind backing it off just a little bit here? I want to just pull in, and let's get granular here for a second, because the corners of Baku have always sort of fascinated me. When you look at the roads you have available here, Tim, and you look at the racing line that the video game has, and again, I know it's a video game, but let's have a look at that. It almost tells you to pull as close as you would have pulled to that other corner, right?
Yeah.
And on this one, I can see that you're actually going a little wider of that. What's the reason?
So when you're coming in here, again, like only on lap sort of 6 here, but the braking is important. That's going to set me up for where I want to place the car. I mean, again, having this apex sort of jut out the way it does, and there's no wall to kind of determine or deter you from using it. Mm-hmm. However, you don't want the wheels to get too much off of the ground with these types of race cars. So yeah, kind of just coming in
tight to the corner, but don't pop it.
Make sure you're not hitting it, right? Okay. And basically driving the car straight towards the wall. The biggest thing with here is the wheel spin you get when you're coming out of the corner, because you can carry quite a good amount of speed here, I've noticed. Mm-hmm. But it's the gearing. It's trying to figure out what's the best gear ratio to use, and also what is the best gear to be in when trying to get out of the corner. Is second gear possible? Is it smart to use second gear? I'm still kind of in that phase of, like, I am getting a little bit of wheel spin. Do I short shift to third to kind of kill it? Because once you get that, once the torque kind of goes through the tires, the car's going to snap. because there's just so much of it, right? Like these are monsters of race cars. So you kind of want to, you don't want to make sure you get a snap. So is it a quick upshift? Is it third gear? And I just try to carry a little bit more speed. And so I'm kind of in that sort of range at the moment, trying to figuring out the gears. However, again, same sort of thing applies here. You want to use all the road. You want to get close to the walls.
And how you exit here is so important because Castle's the actual next corner.
Yeah, exactly. And as you're approaching, I think the braking reference is around here somewhere. I'm kind of using that
the black box
as a bit of a braking.
And there's
sort
the
of
50
reference.
50 sign, right? But you want to be braking already.
Yes, and you're kind of bleeding off the brakes at this point. You're turning in a little bit earlier, like earlier than I think you would, than I think is necessary at first. But then once you start getting through it, you're like, oh, this actually works. I can carry a little bit more speed. They've done some remodeling to this corner as well. It's not as there's this bump. There used to be this bump on the apex curbing that the drivers would sometimes hit and spit them right into the wall. I mean, Charles Leclerc, perfect example. I am stupid. A
classic call.
That classic line. That's kind of been removed, and so the corners opened up a little bit. But again, it's still like whatever 7.3, 7.6 meters in length across. It's the tightest corner on the F1 calendar. You're still threading the needle, right? You're still
tighter than anything at Monaco, which is hard to believe, but that is. That's what you're looking at.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why it's such a challenge.
Yeah, and Adam, you're approaching it at like 200 and whatever plus kilometers an hour, and you're trying to get through it as fast as you can and not smash the car into a million pieces.
Right. And then, funnily enough, so if your entrance here, which has so much to do with your exit from the previous corner, if your entrance here is off, there's an immediate corner right at the top of this little hill. And so when you're taking this, what are you looking at here? Like, as a driver, what's going through your mind?
Yeah, so I think we've already kind of turned in, so we're coming around. If you go back and you watch, I went back and I watched Charles Leclerc's onboard camera from his pole-winning lap from here last year. And it was interesting because once he kind of turns in pretty early, and you're kind of like, ooh, is the car, like, is he going to make it? So he's already committed, right? So the steering wheel's got a bit of lock in it, and he's going to get close to the wall here. And you don't want to move the wheel at this point. You're kind of just like... Let it go. You just got to trust that you've done the right thing, and you're not going to take the front left corner of the car right off. You're going to be good. But it's happening so fast that he does one thing that actually is quite interesting. As soon as he apexes, instead of leaving like a bit of steering lock in the car, he immediately like straightens the wheel and like gives it a kick of throttle to get up the hill. And by doing that, it, again, the amount of torque that comes through the car, that helps by keeping the wheel straight, because if the wheels are turned even just, slightly like this, you're going to get a snap. So making sure that's straight and just missing this wall, like he is like this, and he's floored it when he's going up this hill. If he makes a mistake on that turn in way back, and he tries to do that,
you're over.
You're now
a meter off, and that's all you need to be.
That's it, and you're taking the whole right side of the car off.
Of course.
So like that's how
precise
these guys are.
This comes back to, and let's move it forward here, and you can kind of show us a little bit about, like, because exiting this corner matters, and then I want to get to car setups, because so you hook to the left a little bit here, which makes it just even playing the video game, you're like, that hook left is a surprisingly uncomfortable place to go. Yeah,
and then also because, Adam, if you're too far to the right, you're apexing really early.
Yes.
Now I'll walk you through why that's a problem. So if you're going to apex really early, so essentially you're going to be around here, your exit is now going to be
there,
like here.
And you're ping-ponging.
Yeah, and so then you're going to have to do this.
And then hook back out.
And then do this.
Yeah. You're basically adding an extra corner to your drive.
Yeah, exactly. And you've lost so much time by doing that. 1, 2, you screwed up your entrance to this corner, which is going to compound itself as you're going down this really long straightaway that we're about to come to. So a lot of the times, well, all the time, what you'll want to do is make sure that you're basically turning in later. And then by later, I mean like very late. Because you want to make sure you're sacrificing the exit of this turn. It's so important to do that because of the size of the straightaway that's coming up. So
yeah.
I'm going to come up the hill and then second gear, I think it's around third maybe, turning in really late. I'm apexing here, so I can just do this. And now set myself up really nicely,
and
apex,
clean, and then
back on the throttle, and we are flying down a massive straightaway. And even though it may not seem like much, like the speed is massive. It makes such a difference, right? You're basically going from like, if you turned in really early back at turn 11, and you've exited really wide, you brought the car over, you've turned in for turn 12, then you're getting back on the power, and maybe you're doing 250 kilometers an hour by here. If you do it the other way, where you're turning in a lot later, you're apexing later, you're sacrificing the exit, you're setting yourself up well, it's 260 kilometers an hour.
Right.
So you're gaining 10 kilometers an hour more because of the size of the straightaway and how you've come out and set yourself up. So you have to make a sacrifice somewhere to make a gain somewhere else. And that's what's sort of interesting about that whole
sequence,
castle section sequence.
Yep.
This part here is like very inviting for the driver. It kind of throws you off because it looks like you can really attack the braking zone here, and it looks like you can carry a ton of speed. But there's two things that happen. You're going downhill is number one. And number two, all of a sudden the apex kind of jets out in front of you, and you have to make a decision of like, have I carried like too much speed into here? And am I going to hit the Louis Vuitton wall at the other side? And so again, it's another one of those corners you have to make a decision. Do I use the runoff that's on my right? Or do I believe in myself that I've done the right things and I'm just on the limit and I'm just going to scrape this wall? So we'll see a lot of drivers actually hitting this wall.
Yeah. Or
the
kissing it with both tires.
Yeah, or yeah, exactly. And a big part of that is, did they carry too much speed in? Did they leave the braking too late? Did they commit too much? And that's sort of this type of a corner because it is sort of, it doesn't deter your confidence, right?
Yeah.
It actually gives you a little confidence.
So how do you, if you're a Formula One and thing, we're gonna wrap this segment up here in just a second here, but if you're a Formula One team and you are going into this weekend, these corners are very, very slow in comparison to the rest of the track, which is very, very fast. How do you balance setup? Do you just commit to the double down on the straightaways, or are you, to quote the F1 movie, are you committing the car to combat in the corners? Like where do you lean on that?
It all depends on the characteristics of the car. I can see the McLarens being really fast in tight, twisty sections where, I mean, Red Bull has been really good with trimming their car out and carrying a lot of speed down the straightaways. I could see Red Bull doing something similar to what they've done in races past, where they're like, we're going to take all the wing off of it, we're just going to leave it in Max's hands, and we're going to let him do his thing, and we'll be fine type deal. And then Ferrari, I think they're also really interesting. They struggle with some of the slower corners, but I think they can be competitive here because they were competitive here last year as well, Adam.
Yeah, they were. Charles Leclerc actually has the fastest lap at this track all the way back in 2019, and basically an even 143. He also was on pole last year, wasn't able to win. Oscar Piastri passed him on lap 20. But, that is a very interesting group of three teams that could win this race. And this seems to be Charles' track. He just seems to love it. And Sergio Perez, who will be back next year, also loves this track. Max Verstappen was the guy who set the race-winning record in terms of differentiation between him and second place, over 20 seconds in 2022, which is amazing. So in for a great race. I really do love this track. I know some people are hot and cold on it. This is one of my favorites to both in the race, the real race, but also in video games too. So we'll go back to the main show now. But Tim, thanks for walking us through.
Yeah, no problem. This is a lot of fun.
Tim, one of the other rumors that's out there is that Isaac Hadjar is moving up to Red Bull next year, and Oscar Lindblad, who, if you are not aware, or sorry, is Arvid Lindblad?
Arvid Lindblad,
Oscar,
yeah.
why am I saying Oscar Piastri? Arvid Lindblad, who's working his way up through the junior formulas, obviously is going to move into that extra seat at Racing Bulls, leaving Lawson and Sonoda to fight it out for that last spot.
Yeah.
First, let's start with Isaac Hadjar, who really has been a great driver this year. He's the only driver, I think, in history at Red Bull, other than Max, that I've heard Helmut Marko publicly praise. Called him Little Prost, which I thought was kind of neat. And I mean, listen, that's high praise from a guy who does not give praise, right?
Well, he did go after him after Australia, Adam.
Yeah. Well, listen, he'll praise you when he's up and kick you when he's down. That's the Helmut Marko special. I'm curious.
This
Tim,
is the way.
The joke has always been, or at least recently has been, well, man, I hope Isaac Hadjar doesn't do too well. Then he might earn a promotion, and that would be bad. How do you think he's feeling about that if this turns out to be true?
Yeah, this is something that Nelson and I talked about on this podcast last month during the summer break. Was that Hadjar was going to be moving into the second seat at Red Bull for next season, and Lindblad was going to be coming into Racing Bulls, and Yuki Tsunoda was probably going to be the driver on the outside looking in. Look, it's if you're Isaac Hadjar, and you're getting that call, being like, hey, why don't you come on up to Racing Bulls? We want you to come race for us next year. You don't really have a choice. You're coming up here anyways. I mean, how do you handle that, seeing how many drivers that second seat has eaten up and spit out? Mm-hmm. New regulation, new chassis, new engine for next year. So maybe that changes the dynamic of the car and the handling. You have to wonder if part of its DNA that Max appreciates is still going to be baked into the fundamentals of the car, and that's where your problem is, right? That's where your problem. But I think also as Laurent Mekies is now there, and he takes a different approach to this stuff. I will be curious to see if he's not like, look, the car's already pretty much, it's on its way to being built. Like, it's already started. The process has already been undertaken. It's like, how much of the DNA from this car is in that car?
That's would be my concern.
Yeah.
If I was his agent, I'd be concerned about that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, but he doesn't have a choice, right? Like, Hadjar's got to go. Like, it's his. I mean, he could have a choice. He probably could say no, but then what does that do for the rest of his time at Red Bull and Racing Bulls, right? So
I think it makes him an exciting young driver for another team that might have better DNA in their car.
Right, but then what happens if, like, there's no seats available?
Right.
You're stuck as a reserve driver, test driver, sim driver.
Oh, they would leave him in the Racing Bulls car, don't you think?
I don't know. I mean, that's the question.
Like, would they be like, you're taking this and we're taking your Racing Bull seat away?
I don't know. I have no idea what they could do if he were to be like, no, I'm not going. But at the same time, if you're Hadjar, you have to also think, what if this car is actually really going to be good? Right? Then you're going to put yourself in a good position if you do go. But if it's not good, then, hindsight, right? So he's not going to have a choice, right? He's going to have to. I think he's going to have to go. He's probably going to be grateful for the opportunity, because at the moment you're rolling the dice, and if it turns out to be a great move for you, then stroke of genius by everybody involved. If it doesn't, I don't think he's the type of driver you just cast away. He is a driver that is. I mean, he's championship caliber.
Yeah, I think he belongs. He belongs, clearly.
He does belong for sure. What can you learn from Max, right? That would be the next step, I think, for Hadjar and his evolution is, what can you learn from Max Verstappen? I think that has to be the mindset when you go to the second seat. It's, what are you going to learn from him? Because that will be that first year so important. And I think Yuki's kind of in that spot. Obviously, the car is extremely difficult to handle, so it doesn't make him look very good. On the same front, if he's able to squeeze out some good performances here and there, actually makes him look really good because the car is so difficult to drive.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you have to wonder, okay, well, what happens to Yuki? I mean, Honda's not going to be there next year.
Yeah, they're going to Aston.
They're going to Aston Martin.
And he has been linked to Aston, but there's nothing to that. They've got their lineup set up. There is the rumor about, and I saw it online yesterday, of him potentially going to Alpine. And I wondered what your thoughts on that were, because they moved heaven and earth to get Colapinto, and I don't think they're that impressed. And Jack Doohan, remember, he did race this year. Two good young drivers. Do they feel like maybe both of those guys are not ready, that they're not good enough? Or is it just because Pierre and Yuki are, if that were to happen, Pierre and Yuki are good veteran drivers who can help them pull this car out of last place?
Address the Aston Martin stuff. First off, I mean, they have their drivers for next year, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be Lance. It's going to be Fernando. Maybe there's a test and reserve driver role there, but I don't see that. I mean, if anything, if I'm Aston Martin, I'm probably taking Jack Crawford and I'm putting him in that. Just because of how well he's done in Formula 2 this year, and he deserves that opportunity and that chance. I think for Yuki, it would make sense if Alpine were to come knocking and have some conversations as to where would he fit in within the team. Definitely wouldn't be a test and reserve driver role. He has too much experience for that, and he's a good talent. He complements Gasly quite well, and what I mean by that is that their driving styles, how close they are in terms of their competitiveness towards each other, in terms of the level of talent that they are. I mean, Pierre's great talent. Yuki's really good talent as well, but they complement each other in that fact. And I think also the driving styles are a little closer than what they have now. And I think the amount of knowledge that Yuki has, from which would be his, what would it be, fifth season in F1, I believe, next year. So accrued quite a bit of knowledge as well. So Adam, it makes sense to me if he were to go to Alpine, if that was to happen. I have a feeling it's something that, I mean, if I'm Flavio Briatore, I'm definitely having a conversation with him.
Okay.
Because it's like, I don't want to say, I'm not going to say anything bad about Franco Colapinto. It's just that you're going into such a big regulation change. You need as much experience as you can get.
Right.
Like, having a second year driver, hell, it's going to be hard, right? Like you need as much experience as you can get. I mean, look at Cadillac. I mean, Cadillac could have easily gone with rookies.
Yep.
Saved themselves a lot of money.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, we want as much experience as we can get because of this regulation. We're a new team.
Because they're serious. They're serious about it, right? Jumpstart your ability. And you look at what Stake did, obviously bringing in Bottas and then bringing in Hülkenberg. I mean, it was clearly important to them too before they transitioned to Audi, right?
Well, Bortoleto,
Bortoletto's a young guy, but you still get. They've had some good experience roll through that team, is what I mean.
Yeah,
so,
100%.
Okay, all right, and so Tim, what do you think of the news today that Apple and Formula One are in conversations for F1?
No. I'm going to ask. No, Adam. What do you think? Because I want to hear. I want to know what you think first, and then I'll tell you what I think.
You know what I loved about the movie is that we did the review podcast on it earlier this year, and you weren't that impressed with it. And then I remember going to see the movie with you and then coming out and going, that movie's going to make so much money. Like that movie's going to kill.
Your quote was, as soon as the credits roll, as soon as they roll, Adam turns to me and is like, this movie is going to make $1 bajillion.
because I think it's not, for me and my perspective, obviously I'm not a driver. it was such a refreshing shift from what we've seen the last 5 or 6 years, where everything had a message and everything had to be heavy, and I think the world was ready for, hey, this is kind of dumb, but it's fun and I'm enjoying it. and like, I look at my mom, who's not a Formula One fan. Her biggest exposure to Formula One, I think I told you on our last episode, was like, she watched the Senna documentary, right? But she went and saw the movie. And she's like, that was awesome. That was great. And it's like, that is who the movie's for. They're for people like that, to try to get them into a couple races each year. And I think as ridiculous as the premise was, and as thin as the story could be at times, it was really entertaining, and the way they shot it was amazing.
Yes.
And I think incorporating to me, the highlight of the movie were the race scenes.
Yes.
Obviously, the way they were shot.
The race scenes were incredible.
And incorporating the drivers themselves. And I know Max is not interested in that. I know Fernando's not exactly interested in that. But I do think more of that is a good thing. And, if you can get some of these drivers to understand, and a lot of them do, that this is marketing for the sport, and it's marketing for you. And if you have a scene where you just have Toto Wolff's scene at the end, like, I was like, Toto, you're not a better actor than that. Like, you could have done better than that. But you find, if you get a scene that's really, really good with a Formula One driver, that might just be a couple of lines, that could be the thing that most of the world knows them for. You know what I mean? Like, outside of the driving. So I do think, it's brilliant on Formula One's part to be able to do this. I guess they can't call it F2 because that would be weird. But I'm curious about, do they continue the story? Do they do a completely new story? They've created this Apex GP team. They brought all the sponsors on board for it.
But Tom Cruise wants to be a part of it.
Okay.
It doesn't, because I could have sworn I read an article like when the movie came out. It's like, this is something I want to be a part of in the future.
That's great, Tom. But you're 60, man.
Relax.
Yeah. I think they're, you can have Brad Pitt's character in it because obviously he was great and charming and stuff. But he's got to be a different role. He can't be a driver now.
Team
obviously.
owner or something.
Yeah,
team principal.
He's got to be, or a coach or whatever. He's got to be something else. What I see Brad Pitt's character in the second movie being is like, I raced in this too, but sometimes you got to get out of the Formula One car and you got to go dune buggying or something like that. And then, they have them like racing through the desert or something in a dune buggy. And it's like, that's how you race. And then he brings like a power slide to the track or something stupid, that's what it has to be. And I think what they need to do is they have to focus this next one on Damson Idris a little bit more, and turn that kid into a global superstar that people love and that kids want to be.
Yeah, he's a good actor. Yeah,
I liked him.
Yeah, I was thinking like you do something like, what was it when Mr. T was in Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky 3.
Yeah,
because like when Mr. T sort of shows up, he's like the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be this showdown. I think you need like more of a bad guy type of a character in the next one, because with the F1 movie, you didn't really have like a sort of a bad guy.
You didn't have an antagonist. The antagonist seemed to be the fact that he was old.
Yeah, but also like there was a part of the shareholder, like that one guy who was trying to like sewer Javier Bardem and take the team for himself. But that really didn't get flushed out enough, where I think if you had gave that a little more time, probably would have been a pretty good storyline, because I thought Javier Bardem was, he was awesome, man.
Man, he was the highlight of the movie for me.
Yeah, for me, he was one of my favorite parts of that movie, aside from the racing scenes. Like, the racing scenes were incredible. If they can find a way of redoing that, I'd definitely go and watch it. There's no question about it, especially in IMAX, because that's where that movie had to be seen. You had to see it in IMAX. You just had to.
100%.
It was interesting, Adam. When I went and saw it for the second time with you guys, I just basically was like, look, just turn off everything you know and understand about racing. It's been your whole life. So, 30 some years of this being my life. Turn that off. Put it to the side. Which was hard to do.
Yes.
And just enjoy it like everyone else beside me. who doesn't know much about this world and racing and all this stuff, and just enjoy it with them. And I tell you, I had a good time.
Good.
And I started to see what you guys saw, like where it's like you're just going there to have a good time. Don't take this thing as an Oscar-winning sort of movie, but just sheer entertainment. It definitely wasn't made for people like me. However, when I was able to kind of put that to the side, I actually really did enjoy watching it for the second time. Knowing that there is most likely going to be a second F1 movie, I'll be curious to see how they do it. It's funny because we were talking to Lewis Hamilton about this at the British Grand Prix. We were kind of he was asked about it, there being a second movie, and he, at the time, hadn't had any conversations about it. That was back in July. Mm-hmm. But what he did say that I found interesting was that what he would like to do is go back and look through, talk to the executives, producers, people involved in the movie, and look at what did we do wrong that we can do better for the next go around. He's like, because that's what we do in F1, where we go back, we review everything, we go over everything, and we learn from it, and then we try to do it better, or do what we did bad here, do better the next time out on track. And he was kind of like putting those two together, where he's like, I'd like to do that so we can make this even better kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that.
And I like that too. I thought that was a great idea. But how often do productions do that, Adam?
Well, they want to work with Lewis Hamilton again, who made them $2 billion. Then maybe they ought to listen to him.
But I think also, when you take a look at Apple's involvement financially, the amount of money that they put into it, and them seeing the success of having a movie do really well in the theaters, right? It's one of their first go-arounds at putting a movie in the theater. I think with Apple and a lot of their products that they put out, it's always like, whatever we're going to put out is going to be really, really good. We may not put out a ton of content, but the content we put out is going to look good, sound good, written good, all that kind of stuff. So, I'd be interested to see, how much Tim Cook would be willing to put into a second movie. But he is also the one who did talk about it the other day.
I would think Tim Cook is more than happy to put money into this. Just make it good. Just make it good.
Yeah. And that kind of leads us into the TV rights deal for the States, right? At the moment, F1 is still doing deals with big broadcasters who have a reach on different types of platforms, different ways of getting F1 content distributed within each own's country. We just did a deal. Well, I shouldn't say we, but Bell did a deal with F1 for a new TV rights deal here in Canada. And then there's another one that was just announced. I think it was yesterday with Korea, I believe it was, or South Korea. It was one or the other. And then you've had another one that was done with Brazil. I believe it was Globo, re-upped. And then there's a few others that I think are coming. But then the question comes in as to what happens with the ESPN and the Apple rumors that Apple is going to have rights to F1 for next year. And what does that look like? And so, I think that's a very fascinating conversation when we've seen what, MLS and let's just say streaming in general.
Yep.
Do you think it's done, sports well, or is it something that it needs more work?
Well, here's my issue with going with Apple on this one, and ESPN. They I don't think they've put enough into their localized content. Their social media is really good, but I would love to see ESPN do more content around the sports, understanding obviously that in the United States, football and basketball, whether that's the NBA or NCAA in both cases, it's king.
Mm-hmm.
Your ESPN. You have these rights. It is a fast-growing sport around the world, and has been one of the fastest-growing sports in the last 10 years. I'd like to see more of them trying to grow it. And my issue with Apple taking it would be that it could end up being the same thing as what happened with the MLS, which is you take it and then people realize, oh, I guess I can live without this, because you could have Apple TV, but you may not have that MLS pass. And how many people are that hardcore about the MLS that they will buy the pass? And it's not that that they don't exist, but my question with these subscription services is how are you growing it? Right? How are you growing the sport? And that is where F1 still needs to recognize that in North America, states more than Canada. I mean, Canada, there's only so far you can grow, right? There's only 40 million people. It's a good market, but it's not 400 million people. And Canada's had a long tradition of Formula One, right? We have loved it. We've had a race forever. We've had, drivers. We've had one win a championship. So we've got a history here. I think my concern is if you pull away from broadcasting and because streaming is narrowcasting. Yeah. I'm only making this available to the people willing to pay for it.
Yeah, good point.
Broadcasting is now you still have to pay for ESPN, but it's a far broader audience than what Apple TV currently has. And so I don't know, Tim, that it's the worldwide home of sports. It's really hard to compete with what ESPN, the brand, is. What it is a product now, ESPN Plus, lots of complaints about that, whatever. It's still ESPN. Mm-hmm. And it's still got a
big
huge
brand.
Audience that relies on it every single week. And I just have a hard time looking at this and going, yeah, no, that's a great idea. Let's pull that off of ESPN. Where once you do that, like, not that it gets much coverage anyway, but you look at the NHL rights, and I'll give the NHL. I'm going to add the NHL to this because the NHL is also a niche sport in comparison to the NBA and the NFL, right? Formula One would be considered niche in comparison to the size of people that watch those sports, right? And they're trying to shoehorn NHL content onto shows like, First Take with Stephen A. Smith. And, Pat McAfee's show. And Pat McAfee really actually does like hockey. Stephen A. Smith will say, the only thing I know about hockey is the puck is black. He doesn't care. But they're still doing it. They're still trying it. You wipe away any sort of conversation about Formula One from their shows. And let's be honest, there isn't a lot already. You wipe it away.
I don't think I've ever seen First Take do anything on F1.
I've never
seen Pat McAfee do anything on F1 either.
Never, but you're going to see it from pieces, like in other sports. Like our PTI, I think, has done some Formula One, and PTI has been on the air for 30 years or whatever. I think
last time. Sorry to cut you off.
No, give it.
And then just last time I remember PTI doing anything was at the very bottom of their show when it was like those quick notes that they do at the end. Was Lewis going to Ferrari.
Right.
But that was like a 10-second sort of thing.
Yeah, but that's how you know that they're not ready for that sort of prime time. Because if Apple went in and bought all of the NFL rights, people would buy Apple. Right? Because it's like or they would, rip it off on the internet. I think that Formula One is still a ways away from putting all their eggs in one basket and behind a paywall. I just don't know, like, that type of paywall that's not included in a cable subscription. I think it's just premature for that. That's my opinion on it.
The whenever there's like an American F1 race, so Miami, Austin, Vegas, ESPN has always put it onto the ABC network, so always making it available to everyone, and that does bump up the viewership, obviously, because no one has to pay for ESPN Plus or any of these other things, ESPN2, whatever. They can just go and turn on their TV, get ABC, and they'll get the race. But yeah, it's interesting with the Apple talk, because I'll be curious to see if the rumors turn out to be true. Like, how would Apple service the F1 fan? That would be my.
It can't just be a movie every 3 years, right?
Yeah, because you kind of gotta. you kind of got to build up content around each race weekend, right?
And can't miss content.
Yeah, can't miss content.
And I don't know. I mean, if I were Formula One and I was an executive there, I would be, if I was, I guess, a member of Liberty Media's executive team, I would be very hard on that point of, how do you think you're going to get people in the door through this? Because, on one side, Apple could tell you, listen, you and the MLS are the only two sports we would have. So you would have premier billing. But then I would look at the charts and I would look at the percentage of audience that Apple has versus a Netflix or even, Amazon Prime, because people get a Prime subscription mostly to have shit delivered to their house and also watch some TV too.
So
right?
Essentially it would be like if you owned an Apple product, like an iPad, a Mac, iPhone, you could get F1 for free in America. Like you could watch it.
If that's the case, okay, now I'm interested, because
wonder,
you've got basically the hardware that everybody else has, right?
Exactly.
That's amazing.
That's what I was thinking, where it's like, I would do that deal. That's actually, because then you could either ping everyone who's got an iPhone living in the States, like updating, like, hey, we got an F1 race is going to start in 30 minutes. Turn on Apple TV to watch it, kind of thing. And if you own one of these devices, then maybe you get the race for free.
Or if you pay a little extra in the subscription, you can have it commercial free. Right?
I don't have any inside information on that. This is basically you and I just riffing on like ideas, but that would be one of my ideas. Like that's something I would want to have. When Apple took over the MLS rights, I started watching to see what it looked like. And they did this. Do you remember when the Score used to do court surfing?
Yes. Yeah.
Or the NHL did. NHL Network did. What was the name of the rotating show?
There was one on Sportsnet that they ran on Twitter that Steve Dangle was on. It was called ice surfing, but it's something like that. Yeah.
Yes, ice surfing. And so MLS made that available for free. I don't know if they still do, but it was available for free when it first started. And basically, they were in a studio, group of hosts, and they were basically bouncing between game to game to game to game to game. And they weren't staying on a game for any longer than 5 minutes, 10 minutes max. And if there was a goal, they would go to a goal alert, go to the goal, watch the replay, make a comment on it, come back to the studio, go to another game, another match, blah, 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 back and forth, back and forth. I actually kind of liked it. I watched it. I would watch, I think it was like Saturday nights. Like if I didn't have anything going on, I turned it on and watched it. I mean, I love sports, right? So I watch a lot of sports, but I would watch that as well. I'd be curious to see what Apple could do in that capacity as well, because I think they could probably take the studio type show, and I bet you they could take that to another sort of level with partnering with F1 and technology that they have and seeing where things could go.
And just so people know, like the point of Apple TV is not to make money. The point of Netflix is to make money. The point of Disney Plus is to make money. The point of Prime is to keep you on Amazon products. But Prime TV, it's not there to necessarily turn a profit. It's there to get you into the Amazon system. And same with Apple. Apple TV is there as, sure, they'd love to make money off of it. But Apple TV really is there as a brand extension of their hardware, which is world-renowned. And so that is why, they want you in their system. And that is why they're competing on that level. And that's why financially it would make sense. But as you say, Tim, love to see what kind of shoulder programming they build up around it. It's going to be really, really important that they do something like that. If a guy like Lewis Hamilton retires, you give him a show.
Oh, I mean, that's that's a great. I wasn't even thinking about that kind of stuff. Yeah, okay,
you have to do that, and you have to pair him with a good host and a good panel. And it's like what TNT did with Wayne Gretzky, what football does all the time with great quarterbacks. Even if they're not the most compelling person on the panel, you surround them with people who are, because Gretzky is not the most compelling person on any panel he's on, but he's Wayne Gretzky. So what he says carries weight, and the reactions from his extremely entertaining co-stars are what make it work. And I think you do the same with Lewis, if he'd be willing to do that.
I think just jumping off on that, like, you bring in Tom, like Fox brings in Tom Brady, right?
$300 million contract.
Because they pay him a ton of money, bring him in. The first year was a little...
Wasn't great. He's better now.
I was just going to say that. I was just literally leading to that. But his second year, I was watching, what was it? Chiefs Eagles. He was on that call last Sunday.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn. I'm like, Tom's gotten really good. I'm like,
because Tom wants to be good.
Yeah, like he's gotten way better. Like he's really taken it very seriously. And so, yeah, I think if you can you get the right athlete involved and you give them the coaching, and they take that coaching to heart and they make themselves better. I mean, usually athletes can turn out to be really good broadcasters. So, yeah, that'd be cool to see. I mean, like, maybe they go and get like some of the other legends and they bring them on and, they have their own shows or something. I'd watch it. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Tim. Well, listen, let's enjoy the race this weekend. Very, very excited to see what happens. And as you said, McLaren could win it all. So we could be talking championship on Sunday night, Monday morning when the show comes out.
Also, we've got qualifying podcast on Saturday, and then you and I will be back Monday.
Yeah,
Sunday,
yeah. I think the show will be released Monday.
Right.
Yes. So we'll be back Sunday.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too, man.